Sworn servants, seeking new sensations.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Art of Scumming. Thank you for tuning in, and today we're going to be talking about Dechala the Denied one, specifically my strategy for her campaign, because I've played a whole bunch of her campaigns, and now you guys should have access to this because Tides of Torment has dropped. If you chose to purchase the DLC, you should be starting your own campaigns. I've fallen into a lot of holes when it comes to her campaign over the last couple weeks, and I thought I would share with you my best strategy for her campaign. Your mileage may vary, but this is what I found to be the thing to do. So you start out here in Southern Cathay, and you have some greenskins to deal with. You burn through these greenskins, you raise your first pleasure palace like turn 5, turn 6, something like that. If you're playing your cards right, you should be here by at least turn 6. And then you kind of run out of stuff to do here. And the reason I typically run out of stuff to do here is because I immediately take Wali Village and Fu Hung. I then trade Fu Hung to Balthasar Gelt, and I can reliably get a vassal agreement with him. So he's off my back. He's also on my side, so nobody else wants to fight me at that point in time. From there, once you build your Pleasure Palace, the first building you should target is this one, because this gives you cultists, and that allows you to spread around the map considerably. By the time you get here, build this one, and get a cultist, you're out of stuff to do right here if you've traded that to Balthasar Gelt. You can raise a cultist here, throw them in this sea lane. This sea lane will take you over here, and from here, you can reach this settlement. So you can rush Aislinn on like turn 8, 9, somewhere in there. You can teleport your faction leader here, destroy his only settlement. You can choose to vassalize him if you want, but I choose to take the entire province of the Eastern Colonies. And you can see here, I took these on again, turn 9-ish, started taking them, and I still haven't burned through all my thralls. So there's a reliable source of thralls here. We're talking 3,000 in each settlement, so a big population to burn through. You also have 2 resources to produce money and thralls, and of course tradable resources, 3 ports that do the same, and 3 of these defiled elven colonies, which is a new landmark for Slaanesh in any elven colony. And this provides Slaanesh corruption, increase from ports faction-wide. Speed, all armies when fighting against high elves, and corrupt units, minus 5% favor spent for all of your armies. Times 3. You should target this province. This is a huge boon. Even if you decide not to raise a Pleasure Palace here, I chose not to put a Pleasure Palace here because Slaanesh very much benefits from 4 settlement Pleasure Palaces, and we'll come back to that here in a second. In tandem with doing this, your second objective is to meet your other legendary lords. So, actually, let's go back here. After you start that cult down in the Eastern Colonies, I think it's called, yeah, the Eastern Colonies, you disband that character, that cultist, you raise another one, and you rush her up into this sea lane up here. I see I've got another one I'm exporting. You put her in there. 1 turn later, she'll come out on the other side. You send 1 down to about here. You'll meet the Mask of Slaanesh, and you then beeline it up to Nakari's area and get eyes on him. You need to get to Nakari. And you need to get to Nakari quickly, because Nakari either is going to do this, where he's going to dominate, or he's going to get wiped out. Slaanesh got an update. They've got a little bit of power creep. The High Elves also got an update. A little bit of power creep. Except for, there's a lot more High Elves in Ulthuan than there are in the Slaanesh factions. So Nakari's kind of by himself. He is very powerful, but it can very easily go from this to him getting wiped out before you get there. So you need to get eyes on him. And I will say that if he's doing this, he's very difficult to confederate. The mask is also very difficult to confederate, and good luck. Do everything you can to confederate him. I just confederated the mask maybe 5 or 6 turns ago. I can... yeah, I can... I had the button to confederate Nakari, so it must have been at least 5 turns ago. In my opinion, for Decala's campaign, probably the best new landmark that you can get for Dechala is up here in the Northern Chaos Wastes, right above Nagarond here in Grond. And I think this is a great place to start your second Pleasure Palace because, again, 4 settlement province here. You can see that I haven't had this one very long, and because of that, I haven't converted this to any Tormentor holds. But if we go to my other Pleasure Palace that I have here, this building is very impactful, and you can only build these in Tormentor holds. This is giving me, again, 3 additional settlements, right? With this building in it, gives me an extra 30% income for my Pleasure Palaces. Pair that with this one that gives you another 15% and a few other things. And right now, if you hover over one of these buildings, I'm doing an extra 80% on all of my income from my Pleasure Palaces. This one Pleasure Palace is producing me 4,600 a turn. And not everything is even built yet. Right? Actually, did I misquote that? Yeah, 10% at the fully upgraded. And then on top of it, you've got this one that gives you post-battle loot and all that sort of stuff. You want to eventually convert those minor settlements to Tormentor holds so that you can get access to those buildings and stack those bonuses around the world. And in my opinion, those are the things you should target. You are eventually going to have a little bit of downtime when you're moving characters around the map, because generally speaking, I'm not dropping a Lord into those sea lanes and wasting a whole bunch of turns traversing the world. I'm doing that with a cultist and then teleporting Dechala there, because Dechala goes purely on favor with her teleport. So we go to the teleport. It costs 5,000 favor instead of thralls, or in the case of the mask and Nakari, devotees. But instead of using this resource, you're using your most plentiful resource. So it's pretty easy to teleport around the map when it comes to Dechala, because you're going to have a fair amount of money. So I don't waste time putting her in a sea lane or another army in a sea lane. I send the cultists out, teleport her there. The other objectives that I have gone through is I've wiped out Nakai, and I've turned all the rest of this territory into either vassals or more thrall camps. You can see I'm depleting, you know, some resources here, converting all those over so that I've got a major thrall economy. The way that I look at it is you basically have a pleasure palace, and then you have this sprawling territory around it that is kind of like semi-secure, where you're pulling in mass quantities of thralls and converting it from your regional economy to your global economy so that you can grow those pleasure palaces and massively increase your decadence. So as far as my strategy is concerned, I want to establish this, build it up as a military base, and then around it are my secondary, like, economic buildings that if they get blown up, whatever the heck, usually, unless it's a resource building, this is an exception because I'm going to burn through this one really quick because I don't want to, I want to eventually trade this settlement off to somebody, and it's probably going to be Lokir up here. So I want to burn through all these thralls quickly to get them into my main pool. And then this tier 3 settlement, I can basically sell to him at full capacity. But usually I don't build past the second tier on my thrall camps unless there's a resource there. So like, or a landmark like down, like this one, tier 3, right? Gonna do that one. And same thing with this one. This one's a good one because it has this. So tier 3 on this one. And then usually what I do is after it runs out of thralls, if I'm not going to convert it to a tormentor hold so that I can keep using these resources, what I usually end up doing is building the money building, because it still produces 100 thralls. Now I've built this over the course of doing the campaign, so I benefited from this more on the lead up, but 100 income a turn from from a building that at one point in time was producing me 400 for a considerable amount of time. That's kind of like a decent residual income, and we've got some ads that have added on to that. So that's how I kind of run those particular provinces that have resources in them. You can see I did the same thing here. Like I kept this building and just kind of went with control, so I didn't have to keep coming back here for any of the rebellions. I also run this one for Dechala because of the campaign movement range for her army. So if it's not a pleasure palace, then I run that one. The pleasure palace one always gets this one because it increases the pleasure palace income by 15%. So anyway, that is what I'm doing on my campaign. Some things that I've tried that just don't work out great is I tried to go down to the Southern Chaos Waste, and as you can see down here, this is kind of what happens every single time. I don't know if this faction is at war with Chaos. No, she's not at war with Kairos, but she is at war with Oxyotl. So having even any cults in the region will expose you to Kairos, and you don't want to have Kairos sticking with your settlements. So if you're going to go to the Southern Chaos Wastes, wait till Kairos gets eliminated, or go in hot so that you can wreck him and he won't be trading your settlements around. Because the last thing you want to happen is him trading your settlements around, because you spend a lot of resources on your settlements as Dechala. Other things that I've tried to do is confederate the mask and hold a fragmented empire in this region over here. Really just not worth it, in my opinion. The one mistake that I did make in this campaign that I forgot about is you should not raise this vassal. And the reason you don't want to raise this vassal is this Cathayan faction, and they're going to send caravans out. And those caravans are going to discover a whole bunch of factions that you do not want discovered. So that was a mistake on my part. Do not do that. And then the other thing that I didn't do in this campaign that I've tried is bringing Aislinn on side as a vassal, because it's really easy to generate a lot of thralls really quickly by raising those vassals, because you get so many from subjugation. But if you do that, Aislinn is going to tour the world, and he's going to discover a whole bunch of factions that you don't want to be discovered. As Dechala, in my opinion, you are better off staying small, conquering territory that is, I mean, you start with a very secure province over here, so nobody can really attack this. Same thing with this one. Nobody really attacks this. If you go up here and start here, she doesn't have frozen climate, but after you get done with frozen climate, you've got opportunities for a lot of sacking and raiding and trading to some other factions in the region. And the only reason you came up here was to do this 4-settlement province. So this is still pretty defensible up here after you take out Valkia. This would be a decent vassal to get, because you don't really care to hold this territory because it's unpleasant climate. It's going to cost you 50% more to do everything up here, and your income's going to be reduced by 15%, which is offset by this, you know. So, I mean, your province up here, even though it's a 4-settlement province, is not going to be as rich as your other one, as you can see. It's just not going to be, and I mean, it's not obviously not all the way built, but it's not going to be as rich as one in green territory. The other one that I have tried that just didn't go well, and I just got kind of dogpiled on, was kind of sticking with my same rule of 4 settlement provinces for pleasure palaces. I thought that I would raise a pleasure palace here in the Dragon Isles. Mistake. Don't, because Kugath, you can roll over Kugath, no problem. But then you start into an area loaded with Chaos Dwarfs, loaded with Ogres. You see what's going on here? And because of that, and if Gorst is still there, then you got that. And then you've got High Elves and Skaven, and none of them particularly like you. So what you end up doing is if you take this province and set up a pleasure palace, then you're going to constantly be defending this pleasure palace. Versus like this one over here, I'm pretty much never going back here again. I'm globally recruiting from this location and sending out agents from here. I need to create another pleasure palace somewhere else in the heart of some territory that I'm going to conquer through. This is the Dragon Isles has too much frontage now because of the factions that can, and they've reworked how you can get on land and all that sort of stuff. So having all of this coastline is problematic for having so many enemies surrounding you. That's kind of what makes Kugath's campaign kind of difficult if you don't expand quickly, is you end up just piled on by a whole bunch of folks. So you have to take the fight to them quickly with limited resources because you have to wait for those buildings to cycle. You don't have that problem with Dechala, but you still end up with a lot to deal with if you take this territory. So anyway, let me know what you guys have tried, because I may have tried it too, and I will tell you if that's a good idea or not. Thanks for watching The Art of Save Scumming. Wow, 17 and some minutes. That was a longer video than I thought. Thanks for tuning in. Hopefully we'll see another one here at The Art of Save Scumming.